Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Greet the Week. And today is Veterans Day. And Jan chose our title for today, and it's looking at being patriotic and loving your country and appreciating it, and kind of looking at the difference in patriotism and nationalism. So, Jan, what's on your mind?
Well, as I was trying to determine what topic we were going to have today, and I looked at the date, I said, oh, Veterans Day. Well, that's kind of off the normal subjects that we talk about, but let's talk about Veterans Day. And then I started looking up some things about it and starting to talk about being patriotic. And then the word nationalism came up too. And I said, oh, well, Mona loves dealing with words and meanings of words. So I thought, well, let's talk about patriotism and nationalism and see where we go from there. But I guess first of all, I for any of the veterans watching, very, very much appreciate your service and what all you've done for us, and even for people who don't agree with the reasons that we are at war, we should be appreciative towards the people who volunteer, the men and women who volunteer to serve this country, because we don't have a draft anymore, so we have to depend on volunteers to do that for us, and they deserve some respect and appreciation from the rest of us, and this is our day to honor them. I guess veterans, I was looking up the history of Veterans Day, and it started as a result of the end of World War I, and actually today is the 100th anniversary of the day that we started commemorating Veterans Day. So 100 years to find a day to show our appreciation for those veterans who are still alive. So today is the day to remember the people who are still with us, give them our thanks. So that's what the purpose of the day is.
So what is your definitions of nationalism and patriotism?
Well, the word nationalism, I first learned when I was in high school. I had never heard the word before. In the history class, we had to write a paper on different topics, and that was not my topic, but it was a friend of mine who picked that topic. And then she came to me and said, Jan, what is nationalism? I said, well, I have no clue. And so I learned a bit about what it was. And to me, I mean, back then, what it was pride in your country, that you were proud of being an American, you were proud of living here, and appreciated what a great country we have. And but then as I was looking at more recently to prepare for the talk today, nationalism is kind of taking a negative spin, where people are being more thinking that their country is better than other countries. And I just, that one just doesn't sound right to me. It's not that one country is better than all the rest. It's that we're all different. All the countries have their good points and their bad points. And but I was born here, I was raised here, and I'm proud to be an American. I'm proud to live here.
Right. It reminds me of a story of a kindergarten teacher, and she had all her little students around, and she had flags from around the world, and she was asking them, she says, look at all these flags, and which one is the prettiest? Which one do you like the best? And they, chose different ones, but the one that got the most votes as being the prettiest and they liked the best was Burma. And it was a white background with a big green circle on, and it had an elephant in the middle. and the kindergartners really resonated with that. Well, as the school year went on, the teacher taught them the Pledge of Allegiance and taught them about patriotism and nationalism, and to be proud of our country, but to appreciate other countries also.
Right.
And at the end of the year, getting close, she says, look at all these pretty flags we have here in our schoolroom. Which one do you like the best? Which one do you think is the prettiest? And the majority of them chose the American flag. And of course, some people may say, well, that was brainwashing, but maybe it's just education. That once we get to know something about our people, about our country, and about how we help other countries, we can have a very, hey, I'm glad to belong to that. Yeah. Even though there are many, many things about our country all the way around that is somewhat embarrassing.
And we question or cover our eyes. Oh, no, this didn't happen, did it?
Right. I did not realize that Dr. Glasser had written a book prior to reality therapy. And so I ordered it on the old book, Mental Health or Mental Illness. And in it, he starts off right away talking about, and he wrote this one was the same book, but he had a new acknowledgement to it, a new preface to it. And he says, now 6 years from now, I write reality therapy, so read it. But my point in saying that is the fact that he kept looking at how that as we get more information, our ideas can change. But one of the things that he said, he talked about the needs that we have and our need for power and all this. And he said the reality is very, very few people become famous or really make a difference in the whole world. I mean, there are a few, and we could probably name several, and it seems like a lot, that out of the 8 billion people on planet Earth currently, there really are only a few that are making a big name for themselves. But we can still make a name for ourselves in the small things that we do. And that is definitely loving our country, the place that we were born, and appreciating the people that's there and all the differences. It kind of goes hand in hand with diversity training.
Yeah, right. And I was brought up to respect this country and really appreciate the country because neither of my parents are born in the United States. And my dad especially was very appreciative to all the opportunities that he had here. For he grew up in Cuba, and it was in the 1940s. He came to the United States, I think, in 1942. He was a young man of 21 at the time. And he, there was a lot of unrest in Cuba, and he knew that he wasn't going to be able to do. I mean, they were very poor, barely making ends meet, and he came to the United States to get an education and to send money back home. And he was always very appreciative to everything that this country gave him. And I can remember going to all the 4th of July celebrations in Tyler, Texas, where we'd go to the stadium, and they play the national anthem, and we all stand up, and there were a few people who didn't, and he would get so upset at the people who didn't stand up because he just says they just don't understand how much they have here, how much we have. And my dad, even in his later years, he wrote a book called Thanks, Americans, Thanks, where he talked about all the people who helped him when he was trying to make it in the United States and started living here and go to school without knowing a word of English, and getting an engineering degree and stuff. And so, that's something that was really ingrained in me from a very, very young age, to be very appreciative. And I know what it's like living in other countries. I mean, I don't remember Cuba. I was very young when we went to visit, but I do remember going to Greece because my mother was from Greece, and seeing what the people had or didn't have there versus what we had here. And those were very eye-opening experiences for me. And so that's just something that I do have a pride for my country, and do appreciate all that we have here, because you can do whatever you want to do. You might have to put in a lot of work into it, but if you keep at it, you'll get there. There's just so much we can do here. Just amazing, really amazing.
Right. Well, that's a beautiful story of both of your parents, and that's all the immigrants that have ever come to America and that are still trying to get here. Right. The majority of them is for that exact same reason, is to come to a land that's better and to make it better for those that can't come, to send money home to them so that maybe they can have a little easier existence in whatever country they are in. And we have a little Waco monthly magazine, and it's in this month is talking about the veterans, and they visited a guy that lives here in Waco, and he had worked for years. He's retired now, but he had worked for years for one of the organizations that makes military gear, and that how much he appreciated the military, and he and his wife take well, he was a 20-year veteran himself with the Navy, but he and his wife take annual trips to the European nations to go over and visit, where D-Day happened.
Okay.
And in this article, he was talking about that. He says, what surprises me is the adoration for the American soldiers that the French people have to this day.
Wow.
And how that even the children, because he always takes some veterans with him, he and his wife go,
Okay.
but he takes some veterans with him that, were there as kids. And he said that the French, they even teach their children about America, and so the kids will just come up and hug the
Really?
veterans
Oh,
that come
that's sweet.
and we'll make them little gifts and give them things, and because how thankful they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that in several of the cemeteries that never brought our boys home,
Right.
that are in the different countries, there are committees, there are organizations within the country that twice a year they go out and put flags
On the graves.
On the graves, and not only do they put flags on the graves, but they have a little memorial service that they do at a little Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just find that so wonderful that
Yeah.
there are many, many countries that want to bomb us and all that kind of stuff, but
Right.
there are many, many people in many, many countries that is so appreciative of what America has helped in regaining peace.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so easy to forget the positive things that happened, with some of the other things that weren't so popular, some decisions
Yeah.
that people didn't support. And the focus tends to be on the negative, which is so unfortunate, because there is a lot of good stuff that we've done, that the United States has done for other countries and other places.
Yeah.
But not every place is perfect. Every place has its warts and has its
Well, everybody has
skeletons.
their flaws.
That's right.
So it goes back to, we're all one. And what is in the one is a little fragment of all the holes.
Right.
And so, we're a part of everything. We're a part of everybody.
Yeah.
And we're more alike than we're different. And it's just, it's something.
We are more alike than we're different. We just focus so much on the differences. And it's most of those differences really don't matter, because we're all human beings. We have so much more in common than the differences that we tend to.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Well, on CBS this morning, which is on Sunday morning, CBS Sunday morning, they have it's a news program, but they always have some really interesting stories and so forth. And going back to the days of Forrest Gump,
Okay.
and yeah, you watched the movie and all that, and in there, Captain Dan, Forrest was in the Army, and he was helping to those that had the blast had gone off, and he was trying to rescue the people. And one of the people that he rescued was Sergeant Dan, who had been his sergeant all along, and he lost his legs, and he really went to a dark place in the movie, because he just didn't, he had survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
How could I live through it when all the troops that I was training and leading didn't?
Right.
And Forrest just wouldn't let him, and even years later. Anyway, they were making another movie of the same thing, and it's Forrest Gump and Sergeant Dan reuniting.
Okay.
And he has, but he's getting married. And anyway, was talking about the fact that what a wonderful, that he is really hoping that every veteran will go see it.
Oh, okay.
That that everybody will go see it, but especially the veterans, because he himself personally, that really did serve the nation and was in some war-torn areas. He said when he came, he says he understood that survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
Because, and that PTSD, and it really
Right.
does affect
Right.
you. And you're seeing things that no human being should ever see and
Right.
engage in, whether it's your buddies or the enemy. It's just not something that we can handle without kind of just separating from it, trying to.
Right.
And looking at the fact that there is sunshine after all of the sadness and all of the sorrow.
Yeah. And I
And
was reading something the other day about PTSD with soldiers, and for a lot of them, what helps them get through it is the sense of belongingness with the people who went through what they went through, and that offers some help and support in getting through it. And so a lot of the military people going through PTSD are able to, I mean, a lot of them don't, but a lot of them are able to get through what they endured better than just people in everyday life who don't have that sense of unity or tribe, being together. Um,
right.
of course, then you see the statistics too about the number of veterans that are committing suicide. I don't know if you've seen that versus the number who were killed, and so there's some other disconnect there. That how do we reach out to those people? I guess the guilt just gets so great there too.
Right. The guilt and seeing what you see. I mean, once you see the blood and
Yeah.
the harm, you can't erase that. It just would haunt you.
Yeah.
It really takes a, yeah. And so just to really honor. Also on CBS Sunday Morning, they had this guy, one of the interviewers was talking, and he had always wanted to be in the service, and so he was, and he is wounded, but his main wound is the post-traumatic stress disorder.
Okay.
And he's unable to work, and he's just, anyway, things are falling. And so the person that was interviewing asking says, well, in the long run, was it worth it?
Ah, interesting question.
And I loved his answer. He was real choked up. He says, I am proud to having served my country.
Wow.
He says, but I do need help that I don't have now.
Yeah.
And that's what's so tragic. Not only is it thanking our veterans, but it's realizing that we have an obligation to them. We have a responsibility to them.
Mm-hmm.
They literally put their life on the line.
They did, absolutely.
Yeah. I like to make a little poster and give to the veterans, and I don't have it right here with me. I could look it up, but it's the definition of what a veteran is. And it was defined by someone anonymous, but I absolutely love it. It says a veteran is someone who signed on the dotted line up to and including my life.
Right.
And well, that takes it where it really is.
Yeah.
It's up to that. I love this country so much. I love the aspect of freedom, not only for me and but for everyone.
Right.
And having a place where you can raise a family and you can live without being in harm's way, that we're willing to step in up to and including, pay to the order of the United States of America up to and including my life.
Yeah, my uncle died a few months ago, and he was a veteran of World War II. And he, on Veterans Day, he would go and talk to middle school students, high school students about his thing. And he did up until last year. He was still going and talking to the students. And as I was reading his obituary, I mean, he was my mother's sister's husband, so not direct family related to him, but he had 3 brothers, and all 4 of them served in World War II at the same time. And they were all eager and willing to go and enlist. And my uncle, he had some health issues, and he was able to get over it somehow, so that the doctor would sign his release to be able to go. But for that whole attitude of, I am proud to serve this country and I want to go, you don't really see that. And I'm wondering if that whole change in mentality could be what is contributing to more of these cases of PTSD and the suicides and things, because there isn't that, I want to call it nationalism in a positive way, that people feel like it is their duty and it's their calling to go. where people may be enlisting for different reasons. They're enlisting because they don't have money to go to school or whatever it is, and so they end up in a position that they weren't really prepared for. I just can't help but wonder if that plays a part in this, because the whole attitude really has changed. Not that one is better than the other, but it's just different, and maybe it's time that things get dealt with a little differently as well.
Right, right. I think originally it was called shell shock.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a trauma that happened, and you're still living it later.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, yeah. Well, I do appreciate our veterans very, very much, and
It's nice to have a day to remember and to show your appreciation.
Yeah, because it is the soldier that gives us our freedom in the long run. That helps to keep it established, even if someone burns the flag.
Right.
It is that soldier and that freedom of speech and all that kind of stuff. Even if it's fire in a theater, although it's not supposed to be anymore, but
right.
sometimes things are really egged on in ways that it is that soldier that stood behind and fought for not only our freedom, but a multitude of freedoms around and the preservation of life, even though lives were taken.
Yeah.
Even though lives were taken.
Yeah.
Well, it's a sobering thought.
It is. It is. So let's talk a little about patriotism versus nationalism. How about you? Have you thought about the because apparently they were once synonyms.
I would see it as that. But you know how words change as we use them and abuse them. We give them more power than they did have, or we give them less power.
Yeah.
And then they become degraded. And when we can go back to what the original intent was, and the original intent was to be proud of who you are because you're a good person.
Right.
Yeah. We're all perfect. What does perfect mean? Well, it has different definitions. It means being just right for our stage of development. But the thing of it is don't quit developing, so that we can go on to get a little bit better and better and better.
Yeah, you don't want to be complacent with being really good at what you're doing. It's like, well, push yourself a little bit, stretch, go out there and try something else, do something a little more.
Right. And giving honor to whom honor is due. And certainly there is a position of honor to give to those that have I mean, not only their life, but I mean the conditions under which they live and tread, and the equipment that's carried and so forth is just mind-boggling. I mean, it really takes physical stamina as well as emotional and mental stamina, and a big, big heart to be able. And then in Brokaw's book on the greatest generation, how that all of them were so humble, and that it was my duty.
Right.
Sometimes we can make duty be drudgery, and we can do that
in
anything.
Absolutely.
Anything. And although that was certainly something that was drudgery and something that was, but yet they saw a purpose to it.
Mm-hmm. And that purpose, that's what's so important. That's what keeps them going and keeps them motivated, is because they do see a purpose. And when you don't have that purpose, then it's like, why are we doing
this? Yeah.
And it makes it.
So back to your dad's book. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it. Is it in
I've
print?
got extra copies. I would be more than happy to give you a copy.
Oh, well, I would love to have one. I mean, that is fantastic. I love that. And I love the title. Say it again.
Thanks, Americans. Thanks.
Really powerful.
That's yeah. And he remembered. He must have written down everybody who loaned him money and did something for him, because he made a point to go back and repay everybody.
Oh, my word.
Because when he got a scholarship to come to the United States, to go to the University of Houston, but he didn't have money to get here, and so he was able to defer starting another year. So, and he went to house getting people to donate, to give him some money so he could come over here. And once he came over here, he was going to school and he was working to try to earn some money because he needed money to live off. Of course, he did live with a woman who had a son his age who happened to have been born on the same day but had died. And so he always referred to her as his American mother. And so then there are, a lot of people here who helped him out, and he made a point to go back and repay them and say thank you to all of them.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. And so what work did he engage in?
Well, he got his degree in mechanical and civil engineering. So he got a double degree, and then he went on and got a master's in mechanical engineering and worked as a petroleum engineer.
Oh, no, it had a big impact on his daughter.
That's right. Very much so. Yeah. But he always, because he had nothing growing up. His father was a bookkeeper, and his one brother had a farm, sugarcane farm, and they grew sugarcane, and just barely making ends meet. There were 6 kids, and there were 3 boys and then 3 girls, and Dad was the youngest of the boys. And he got the scholarship here, and then the second son was kind of taking care of the women, and Dad was sending money home. So he was very, very loyal, very patriotic to his family, very loyal to them, and always felt that he had a duty. And then in the 60s, brought some of them to the United States. But,
Oh, that's really neat. Really neat. Okay, well, thanks for choosing this topic today.
Well, sure. We got off a little bit more than where I meant to go when we started, but it's good to remember, because patriots not only serve in the military. I mean, there are patriots who show it in other ways, that help each other out and do things for people, and those people need to be appreciated as well.
Yes, definitely. Well, thanks for tuning in later.
Well, thank you, and we'll see you again next week. All right. Bye-bye.